Now, the first day of F1 testing has finally happened in Bahrain. But what did we actually learn? Now, of course, it's the first day of testing. There's got to be a lot of salt being pinched. We don't really know exactly how quick the teams are. We can definitely tell where the car is at the moment, but obviously that could change a lot in the next coming weeks. And also teams might be sandbagging or be on different types of styles to understand what is the problems with the car and how to make it even better go into the future. It's all about learning at this stage at the end of the day. Now, that being said, there definitely wasn't a quiet testing session. Of course, in that PM later session, it started with the grid actually getting completely shut down through power. There was nothing going on, and in the end, they had to red flag the session and come back later, which they agreed to make it an hour later, where it finished 5 PM in the UK to give the teams more chance to actually work on their car on that first day. So that was definitely interesting. There was also spurts of wet. There was a few different drops of rain at certain points. It wasn't too much at the end of the day to really make a difference, but certainly put some of these drivers at unease. Isaac Hadger was not loving it out there at all, and ultimately it was a very interesting day with Lando Norris coming top, Russell second, and Verstappen third in the overall timings. Now, first of all, I want to talk about Ferrari. It looks like their straight line speed is very good. I can see them already in a straight line speed being one of the best in the grid, and although there was maybe some problems on some slow speed corners, I do think overall the car on the first day looked pretty decent. They seem to have a lot more control on it than a couple of years ago, and as much as they can give the feedback and hopefully work on it in the next few weeks, I expect Ferrari to be very competitive. Now, of course, like we have spoken about, I expect Leclerc to be quite ahead of Hamilton. The timings show that, but obviously that's to be expected, and I think Leclerc, at least for the first half of the season, will be substantially ahead of Hamilton till he catches up and gets used to it, which is obviously something that we all know was going to happen. Now, the next team I want to talk about is McLaren. McLaren had some interesting things happen throughout the time in the testing session. They were trying to change their floor quite a lot, so no one could really see what was going on, and it definitely felt like Piastri wasn't even really going very hard on his session because he was trying to figure out some different compounds with the mediums and how the car worked. They obviously had at the start, when he was out there, the whole metal container thing around the car, which we also saw some other drivers have, like Yuki, which just shows you how early these builds are and how they're trying to move the car and direct the car into ways it makes it better for that driver specifically, which is obviously going to be the main thing. But I do think that McLaren looks quick. It probably does look like the quickest car overall with a complete package at the moment on the grid. I think even when you look at some of the difficulties that other cars may have had in corners, it just definitely didn't feel like that with Lando's car. At least he was very comfortable a lot of the time and comfortably was the quickest car out there, so maybe we're going to have to see if that was sandbagging by other teams and see if that continues. But I do think McLaren are looking at a really good spot right now, with Ferrari's top line speed probably been a little bit quicker. Now, next is obviously Red Bull. Now, Red Bull are a very interesting team. This car looks oddly familiar to the car last year, barely looks any different, and it apparently might be the car that they actually take to Melbourne, with Christian Horner saying that that is going to be majority of the car with a few changes going into it. Now, it looks decent, I guess, and obviously Verstappen's going to make it look great at any point, but there was some issues that Lawson had, especially when he was driving early on, where it just kind of jointed about a little bit and kind of fought him in some corners where he was kind of being pushed out of position, which is very interesting to see because not many other cars had real issues in that regard, and obviously that was that Red Bull that came there. Now, maybe this is just Lawson in experience and he'll get better, but we'll have to see going into the future because Verstappen will still get a lot out of that car, but can it actually compete with the Ferrari and the McLaren, which is the big news that we want. For some of the mid-pack teams, it was definitely up and down. I think Mercedes obviously had a good run in the end. I think Antonelli showed a lot of promise on that first day, but obviously the main point of him being improvement is going to see what sort of feedback he gives to them, because there is still a long way to go with that Mercedes car, which they have been pretty down on, to see if it actually improves. The Racing Bulls did decently on the times, but there definitely was some real early problems of Hadjar. He kept getting kind of caught off the track. There was a few turns where he spun out and really couldn't get control of that front end of the car, more importantly, and he was one of them drivers that was really struggling with that oversteer, especially actually. There was a few drivers that really did, and he was one of them, which obviously it is his debut, but you'll want to see that at least improve a little bit in the future to see where that car actually is. Now that is kind of the same with the Williams. I think they both did really well, and you expect Albon to probably be in head because of that experience he has in that Williams car, but Sainz did decently well, even though he did have a few moments where he spun out a little bit when he was trying to test the limits a little bit, and yet again it's that front side of the car sort of locking up and he couldn't really turn, but in the end he didn't put it in the wall, so that's the main thing. He got things sorted out, and it's all about testing at the end of the day. You got to find your limits, find the sort of medium of where the car actually can get to and where you can sort of perform with it. So I think that was to be expected from some of these new people within these new teams. Other than that, not too much happened. I mean, Kick Sauber had this really cool lights that actually helped them supposedly change the tires a lot quicker. Interesting to see if they use that in the races. I don't know what that's all about, but that seems quite fun. And Haas do seem very far off it. Obviously the smallest car in F1, they usually start kind of slow in the last couple of years, so that is to be expected, but they were coming into this season probably better than Kick and stuff, and on the timers they were just quite not there. It doesn't seem like that car has much straight line speed, and obviously them changing engines hasn't really helped them in this instance, so they all want to improve a little bit going into the next couple of days and obviously into the season. Overall, it's a day full of drama given the circumstances of it only being in F1 testing, but still there's a lot to learn and we can keep moving on to the future. The next few days are coming up, so we'll see what happens then. But let me know in the comments who you guys thought was your surprise person and your most impressive car overall of the grid. It's great to see cars back on track. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one.